This is the North Georgia Life Podcast. Embrace life where you live. Welcome back to the North Georgia Life Podcast. Today we are with Phoenix Coffee Roasters, which if you're anywhere around the North Georgia area, you have probably been to an event, a function that they were catering the coffee. Their coffee is amazing, but even more amazing than their coffee, which is hard to top, because when you listen to this podcast, it's like, we've done other coffee outfits on this podcast as well. The one theme you will pick up is I really like good coffee, and Phoenix Coffee Roasters is really good coffee. As you will hear in the podcast, just some of the nuance and the technology and the awesomeness surrounding what they actually do. And actually, they brought in some samples. Sidebar. We had some little bit of logistical monkeying around to make this happen, and so we actually recorded the episode in a friend of mine's, one of his conference room offices, and they brought us some samples of their coffee. I had already had their coffee, knew it was amazing. My friend had not, or didn't know he had. So he brewed. He's the first one in the office the next morning. Brews their coffee and sends me a text. He's like, dude, I need their information to send them a thank you. He's like, this coffee was amazing. And I'm like, hey, you can order it from them, and you could just have amazing every day. Who doesn't want amazing on a daily? So anyway, sidebar. From a life and business perspective, as we kind of get the kind of summary nuggets here, one is, in going through life and business and wherever things take you, if you're old enough, you understand this. If you're young, this just seems like something old people know, but you don't. Your A to B is usually not a straight line, and it's usually how you get where you get in life is often not the avenues that you thought at point A that you would take to get to point B. That's okay. I'm hoping that over the course of these different entrepreneurs and business leaders and people in our North Georgia community, that's one of the themes that you would pick up is just, kind of like the Finding Nemo, just keep swimming, just keep going forward. Know where your true north is. Know the cause, the mission that is the behind the thrusters, if you will, behind your bad days, your tough times, and as you will hear, this did not start out as a coffee endeavor. It started out from the heart, as they share, the heart of God, helping hurting people. As raw as that is, it's plain and simple. There's lots of people who need healing, that are broken. They need help. They need a hand up. That is where this started. And if I kind of lost you a little bit there, can I challenge you to be open-minded enough to listen to their story? Because their story, some of these things that they share, you just can't make up. And if it is what it is, then there is hope for all of us. Which is a good thing. So you want to listen. The other thing, apology, not apology. This is one of the longer episodes that we've done. It was one of the longer recordings we've done, and it's one of the longer finished episodes because I could not figure out how to cut it down any further than I did. Because some of the stories and just if I can say the life access that they're sharing in this, I've heard bits and pieces of their story. We get into some of the details that I've not heard other places that they've shared. So I just have to share it because it's the true insider scoop. You know how to find us on Facebook, Instagram. I'm horrendous about posting stuff on a regular basis. I'm sorry. Life has been super busy for us. Hey, this podcast is free. If you didn't realize that, it's free. So if this helps if this is an encouragement, if you just want to do everything you can to support small businesses and people that are trying to help hurting people in our community, we call it North Georgia, and for Phoenix Coffee Roasters around the world, hey, share the episode, share the podcast with people. It is our ambition to just help make the people who make North Georgia what it is, just make their lives and their businesses and hopefully the longevity that we all have here in North Georgia just that much better. So that's it. That's our only plug. If you want to email me, you've got suggestions for future episodes, North Georgia Life Podcast at gmail.com. We've got a couple, if you're an outdoors person, we've got a couple outdoors things coming up this next couple months. I'm a little bit behind on my recording schedule, but just stay tuned. If you like outdoorsy stuff, we got some stuff coming for you. With that, we'll get started with Phoenix Coffee Roasters. Today, I think we're going to kind of go all over the place because we're talking about coffee and we're talking about life and we're talking about bank accounts we had. So we are with Luke Pender and Jeff Bagwell with Phoenix Coffee Roasters. I have met you guys in passing and have known bits and pieces of your story for the last couple years. I'm excited of just the story and the journey you guys have, that your business can also be your mission, and helping people who have a similar dream or just kind of like a thought out there of like, how do you actually materialize some of these things? We obviously won't get into everything, and then sharing your journey through this. So thank you guys for being here. I don't know your background as far as where you guys are from. So give me just a short, how you got here to Georgia.
Well, we do have a connection to South Florida. Okay. I was born and raised in Miami. And in 1981, my parents moved to Marietta, Georgia. And so I ended up going to Lassiter High School in Marietta, ultimately to the University of Georgia. I wanted to go to the University of Miami, where my dad went to school. But long story short, I ended up getting connected to a youth group in a church that was just being planted back in 8th grade. And that's how I ended up coming to know Christ there, which kind of led me down this path eventually to the University of Georgia and into ministry from that point on. Because it's while I was at the University of Georgia that I ended up becoming a part-time youth minister at a little small country church, which led me into a full-time career and going to seminary, into the ministry, which eventually down the road led to Phoenix Roasters. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit of my story there. And anyway, along the way, I met my wife, Kelly. We both went to seminary together. Been married 30 years, have twin boys, Zach and Nathan, who are 24. You do not look old
enough to be married 30 years.
Well, thank you very much. It's all the Botox.
Either that, or I'm convinced Jeff might be a vampire. Because he doesn't, I swear he doesn't age. Like, yeah.
Strong
this is not caffeine. True. There you go. Yeah. Yes, there's something special in the coffee.
Yeah.
So tag.
I'm Luke, and I'm from the Bahamas. And yeah,
well, I know. You are a dual citizen.
I am a dual citizen. Yes, that's true. And, don't let my whiteness is not my entire likeness. Yeah, they call me white chocolate. None of the color, but all of the flavor, My family, we immigrated to the U.S. in '92, right before Hurricane Andrew hit Miami. I was also in Miami and lived down there for a long time, and also got into student ministry. I was a youth pastor, and I was at a church in Sugar Hill. And then I got pulled into this meeting that talked about that we're going to be talking about the giveaway coffee that we use on Sunday. And I was like, look, man, like none of my students drink coffee. And what y'all are serving right now is cruel and unusual.
Yeah. Military grade.
Oh, it's terrible. Like, but the only part of the military they're using it for is to extract information out of people. And they're like, hey, we got these two guys coming in or whatever. And so, and at the time, I was one of the younger guys on staff, So I'm at this meeting, and there's these two clowns, Brian Holland and this guy, Jeff. And so when I just moved up from Miami about a year before that, and we love all the same teams and everything. And so I started hanging out with them. And, your mom always tells you, be careful who you hang out with, and started like hearing more about the vision of the company and what they were doing and the people they were helping and how it was so much bigger than coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like really intrigued by that. And then they're like, hey, would you maybe like to join our team and help us plant a church in Lawrenceville? Because they had another church that they had already kind of done. And our coffee company is basically a revenue stream that supports missions and church planting. The thing that we really care about is people.
Mm-hmm.
And coffee allows us to care for people in ways that we couldn't imagine or dream otherwise, along with also helping us build bridges with people as well.
Yeah.
And so I was really thinking about making a kind of a career change, I guess, in some ways, and joining up with these guys. And then I ended up getting a job in Colorado, and I moved away. Stuff started to change with my situation out there. And I called Jeff to actually complain about the Dolphins. One of my crosses to bear in life is I'm a Miami Dolphins fan.
That is significant weight to bear.
Yes. I mean, my therapist tells me to talk about it.
Laces out, Dan.
Yeah.
Laces out.
I mean, I really feel like Hootie here. I'm such a baby. The Dolphins make me cry. So I called Jeff to complain about the Dolphins. And next thing I know, about 8 months later, I had packed up our little Georgia bundle. And we came back here, and I moved here to this great city of Gainesville.
Mm-hmm.
And that was almost 7 years ago. It has been a heck of a ride. And Jeff is one of the founders. He failed to mention this, but he's one of the founders of the company. And it really is a big part of the glue of kind of keeping everything together. I'm there mostly for eye candy.
I can see that.
Especially with the mustache.
Mm-hmm.
I had to keep telling people my eyes are up here. I'm a person with a soul.
He helps us relate to the younger crowd.
That's right. Yeah. But it's really, really cool. I've never been a part of something, quite like this. Coffee opens up so many doors, and it's really cool. The thing, like, our company is not that big, and it's crazy when I look at some of the success that the company has had. And I've had the great pleasure of, I met them like year one of the coffee company. So, and there was there was a few things that I was involved with them with that were firsts. Back in the day, selling some of the different things and stuff. So I've got a long history. So when I came on staff, it was like, just like linking up with your old buddies, but now we're seeing each other every day, and it still feels that way.
That's awesome.
And it's so cool. Like, I don't know that I've ever been a part of any staff where, like, literally, anytime you go to a job or whatever, they'll be like, oh, I get along with these guys.
Yeah.
And then there's like this whole half of the staff. I'm like, yeah, we really don't see each other. We try to not to maybe. And that might be like that for other people, but like, it's not like that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably the only job I've had where like all of us really feel like a family. And I'm hoping this is the last job that I have because of the things that I'm seeing that we're able to do with coffee overseas,
mm-hmm.
and where we get, which I'm sure we'll get into, some of the countries of origin and the things that we're able to do and be a part of, things like, healthcare and education, single mom, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And then the work that we're able to do here, places like Good News at Noon and our church here in Gainesville, cool things that we're seeing God able to do and using coffee to help fund it all. It's like the gas in the engine.
Yeah.
And so it's a really unique thing, and I'm super glad to be a part of it.
Jeff, when did the idea of coffee as the business, because it was ministry first, but I'm assuming you drank coffee along the way, probably what sustains most people in seminary.
Well, here's what happened. Here's how it all came together. My wife and I were in seminary back in 1994. And we had a friend, I know, long time ago. It was a good year overall. Anyway, long story short, we had a friend of ours who we did student ministry with in Athens, Georgia. My wife and I moved to seminary to go to school full time. And he ended up leaving from Athens, going to Mississippi. And in the small town of Tupelo, Mississippi, which is also the birthplace of Elvis Presley, he met Brian Holland. And so they came to seminary to do a week-long seminar. And so we wanted to see Kevin, and Kevin came and hung out in our apartment in between classes, and Brian was with them. And so we ended up building a relationship with Brian as well. Now, fast forward to 2007, when Brian had left First Baptist Duluth, the student pastor, and started this little church called the Phoenix Community of Atlanta that met in a pizza restaurant in Duluth, right there at the corner of Beeford Highway and Old Peachtree Road. That's right, Pepperoni's Pizza. He was looking for somebody to help him. And so I was on staff at a church that was doing a lot of church planning. We had a church planning conference. So he showed up and he invited me to join him in planning this church. And so in December, first mistake. So in December of 2007, we started the Phoenix Community of Atlanta. And we wanted to do two things. We wanted to plant churches, but we wanted to be a church that was generous with the offering plate. We wanted to have more money leaving the church than we were keeping in the church. Mm-hmm. So we were looking at doing church a little bit differently. We were looking at meeting in businesses or places that people went in during the week, that they would allow us to come in and just be really flexible and set up church on Sunday mornings. And so we wanted to do that. We wanted to reach people who weren't your typical church folks. They may not, they may be dealing with a lot of life crisis. Mm-hmm. So therefore they don't have the funds to tithe like a lot of people would in regular churches. And so to do that,
this is also the kind of people they hired too.
Exactly. So we just said people who are broken, hurting, down and out kind of folks. A lot of times the church doesn't have time for, the traditional church doesn't have time for, or they maybe sometimes think, well, they're a little too problematic. We're going to let somebody else deal with them. And so, and a lot of times it's homeless folks and just people going through some different tough times in life. We were just trying to reach those folks. And so that's how it all kind of came together. And so we were looking at revenue streams for the first 3 years. We were like, well, what kind of revenue streams can we find that'll help us fund church planning and also being able to help these people, meet just basic needs like rent, food, different things like that. And so over a period of time, we ended up coming across coffee. So we ended up creating a partnership. Brian had a son who was playing lacrosse. His son was, I think, 9th grade at the time over in the Peachtree Ridge area. And a guy named Hunter Lambeth, who did international missions for Young Life, walked up to Brian and said, "Hey, are you the coffee pastor?" Brian said, "Yeah, that would be me." Right. And we had really started dabbling.
Do I owe you money?
Yes. We'd just been dabbling in coffee. We were buying some coffee from a local roaster there, and we were trying to help nonprofits raise funds for their missions and their causes. But what we found out is you're giving away all your profit if you're trying to help them raise funds, and then there's very little left over for yourself. And so Hunter's like, "Hey, we've got a family who they're from Nicaragua. Their dad had died recently and they had to go back to Nicaragua. And it was the farm where Young Life was getting the majority of their coffee from. He said they had a coffee roasting business in California. They only knew one person in the United States, and it was me." Wow. He said they've packed up all their coffee stuff and they've shipped it over here and it's sitting in a warehouse in Buford. Why don't we talk to them and find out if you can use it? So Hunter and Brian flew down to Nicaragua, spent a couple of days with the family. A couple of weeks later, the brothers came up to Duluth and met with us. And so the last night they were there, we were sitting around a table at a restaurant, and they said, "We love your heart. We love your missions. You can use all of our equipment if you want to. Just send us some money from time to time." And of course, they had a roaster and they had all this coffee ceiling and bags and all these different things we needed to begin to do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. So the very next morning, we go over to the storage facility and we open it up. Now, press pause. 18 months earlier, when we decided we were going to go with coffee, we had a leadership team of 6 people. And for 18 months straight, we had identified a roaster, make, model, the whole 9 yards that would roast 25 pounds at a time. It was German made. It was a Probat roaster, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. And so we'd meet every month and we'd say, should we, because we'd have to go into debt. Should we spend the money around $30,000-$40,000 to get this roaster? Should we take a loan? Should we do it? And all of us would say, nope, every month. Nope. Nope. Nope.
For 18 months.
18 months. So back to the warehouse, we open up the storage door, and sure enough, that roaster that we'd identified 18 months earlier, make, model, the whole 9 yards, it was that exact roaster, and we got it for free. Well,
and on top of that, this particular make and model, there was only 1,000 of them that were made.
Wow.
I mean, so, and Hunter to my knowledge, you can correct me, didn't know what make and model that was. And Brian even said, well, we'll take a look at it, but we've identified a very specific make and model. And when he opens up the door, there's the exact thing. Now, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. And Brian had asked him, when did this get here? And he's like, about 18 months ago. I mean, like literally when they started praying for this, God moved it 10 minutes away and just nobody had a peace about it and everything. And here, this was so much more. And let me just tell you, every bean that we have gotten, we have roasted over 300,000 pounds on that machine, 25 pounds at a time.
Wow.
Every bean that we have ever produced has been roasted on that sucker.
And it is still roasting today and will continue to roast.
They're roasting right now.
I say the Germans make good equipment machines.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can see from the very beginning, that was kind of confirmation. And so we're like, okay, now we got to find a warehouse. Well, there had been a warehouse that was directly across the street from Pepperoni's Pizza where we had been meeting. So it had been for lease for months and nobody had leased it. And so we ended up making a phone call and the guy leased it to us for what we were paying. So he leased it to us for the exact amount we were paying to meet per month at Pepperoni's Pizza. Wow. So our cost did not increase. God provided the roaster, the coffee bag sealer, everything we needed. And so that's our start.
Wow. So, because I think this is an important thing for people who have a dream or have a vision. You started with, we would like something that is, not inherently good or bad, but let's just call it the Western church model. And we want to do it differently. We want the same core mission, but we want it to look and feel and reach tangibly different groups of people.
Correct. We felt like there was a way, because we'd all grown up in the traditional church model. And I'm not saying that's bad. Yeah. We just felt like there was a way. God had birthed in us vision as youth pastors that we can do church differently and it can look different. Yeah. And it's going to help us reach different people. And we're going to be able to meet needs because we believe that credibility helps you build a relationship with somebody. Yeah. If you can meet a need now, you're bringing relief, and now you can have a conversation with them because now they have relief. Now they have margin to actually listen to you because number one, you've built credibility by meeting their need, but they're not drowning and they're suffering at the moment because you've helped bring relief to that. So they'll hear what you have to say, and you can present the gospel message and just invite them to be part of your community.
And I think there's a lot of churches that want to do that. I think most people that get into this kind of work are doing it because they want to help people. They want to help people, right? But the problem is, when you have a mortgage on a building overhead. And the overhead is high, plus you got, you want to take care of your people, right? Healthcare, salaries, benefits, it's
printers, paper, like
all of the above,
of this stuff,
right? You got a children's deal and you got stuff and insurance. It becomes a lot. So a lot of the resources that are coming into the church end up staying there,
to keep the doors open,
just to keep the lights on and the air running and, and all of those kind of things. And plus there's benevolence and all of the above. And so, what these guys, and this is what I appreciated about them. And, as youth pastors, we're used to working on a shoestring budget anyways, and we're the ones that get blamed for breaking everything, even though it might not have been us, right?
And we're always dealing with the fringe kids.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. Have you seen the senior citizens? I mean, they get pretty rowdy on bingo night, guys. We're not the only ones partying back here in the fellowship hall. But so it was gonna require a different approach. You know what I mean? We're like up there on the line, like Peyton Manning going Omaha, right? And so when we kind of came around, these guys came around to this, and it's kind of cool because I got to see it a little bit from the outside, and now I'm on the inside, and now just hindsight's 2020. I maybe should have just stayed on the. No, I'm just kidding. But it's It's been really great to kind of watch that, process. But because of the model and how we're able to do it, like for instance, our campus here in Gainesville, the one in Duluth actually moved from that pizza restaurant into the warehouse. So the church was meeting. I mean, we'd move stuff around, and so you put chairs out and stuff like that. And our roasting machine is like right over here, and it smells awesome. And like both would happen, during that week, which was really, really cool. And people kind of felt like, wow, this is like really, really different. And then, like our campus here, we've been in several different places. It went from Jeff's living room to Little Italy, over there. And from there, we were in Midland Station for a few months. And then we moved down. We met an awesome couple here, Justin and Danielle Holland.
I know them. They are awesome.
They are incredible people.
Yeah. Gainesville staples.
Yes. And let me just tell you, like, these guys let me just tell you, they have such a heart for other people. And so we ended up like basically trading coffee for space.
Wow.
Now we're not in there like a ton, but still they could be doing so much more. But this is, to me, this just speaks to kind of like their character. And when they saw like what we were trying to do, and how, they kind of stepped up, and, it's just great. So we've got a great partnership with them. Yeah, and if your kids need a dance studio to go
is it in the dance studio?
Yes, that's where we meet.
Yeah,
Washington Street.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so we were actually in the old building that they were in. We were in there probably for like 4 or 5 years with them there. And then when they just made the move right next to Dress Up, we're still with them.
Yeah.
And
so if your kids want to learn, or you and your spouse want to do dance,
absolutely.
There is no better place.
There is no better place. I 100%. And supporting them is awesome because they're really great people. But it's a different kind of model. And about 60% of our week is on the coffee side, and then about 40%. Now that can kind of change. So like the first week of the year, we got the great opportunity to brew coffee for the Passion Conference in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Nice.
So there are some things that we've done as a coffee company that I'm like, how did in the world
here?
Did we get
Passion could get anyone.
Yes. And they've already booked us for next year.
Wow.
But we go on site and we brew, and we're brewing for all their door holders, which is still like 6,000 people.
Yeah.
But we're in there for like 4 or 5 days, around the clock. Every 4 or 5 hours, coffee's got to be switched out and everything like that. And, that was really cool. And sometimes it's heavier on the coffee side. Sometimes it's heavier on the church side, as people have needs. And Jeff serves on the board at Good News at Noon. And there's a lot of stuff that our church does with them. In fact, a few years ago, there was a guy that we met there that we helped transition out of homelessness. And for the last probably 4 years, he's not homeless and living his life. And
that's important because the coffee gave us the margin as a church to help him. He had no ID, he had no nothing. So we were able to put him up in a hotel, and the guest lodge here in Gainesville, Jay Singh, who owns it,
awesome,
was great, gave us a discount, allowed us to keep him there for several weeks. We helped him get his birth certificate from Illinois.
Wow.
Then he was able to get his ID and driver's license. He was able to move forward and get disability with Social Security because he was in his early 60s and has scoliosis. And so we were able to walk with him through the steps and able to get him a place to live and everything. And so the coffee actually allowed us to have the money as a church to invest in him and get him out of homelessness. And we, from the very early days of our church, the third Saturday of every month, we go to Good News at Noon and we serve lunch. And we've been doing that for 7 years. And we build relationships with the individuals there. And we've had a lot of them come through our church. We've helped several families and individuals get back on their feet and actually get out of homelessness and travel. Like we pay for bus tickets and airline tickets for them to get back and get reunited with their families as well.
Wow.
And so when people buy our coffee, that's, again, it's coffee that is doing good on so many levels.
Yeah.
We use the term a lot, coffee that matters. And if I didn't know anything about our coffee company and I could see that, there might be a part of my brain like, well, that might be a little arrogant. why does your coffee matter and none of these do?
Right.
Right. And they're like, and that's a great question. And coffee is great, but coffee isn't the goal.
Right.
Right. Coffee is a means that help us actually do things in life that actually matter.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously the world would be a different place if we didn't have coffee, and nobody wants to see that. So
no one wants to see that happen.
So during the shutdown, we're like, no, we're an essential business.
Yes.
Right. Because if you start taking away coffee from people, like the world, you want to see the apocalypse?
It's like fire, police, EMS, coffee.
Yes. But
Probably
maybe
first.
not in that order. What's keeping those guys
That's
going?
right.
Right.
That's right.
Coffee, because meth is illegal. Right.
Which we did. Firehouse number 7 in Gwinnett County, which is just up the road in Duluth from our coffee warehouse.
Well,
we worked with them closely, and we kept them fueled and going. To this day, some of them still come by and get coffee from us.
Your comment of just the purpose behind it. I literally I told you when we walked in, I don't normally dress this formal, but I was at the University of North Georgia this morning for a thing with our business college, and I had that same conversation with 2 students who are both seniors, and they're I think they were both finance majors maybe, but always ask people like, why'd you pick this major? Like what? And I remember being that young, barely. I mean, I barely remember what it was like to be young and not have my knees hurt and stuff like that. But was just had a real life conversation with them of don't look at opportunities of the salary, the company name, the benefits. I said benefits are great until you realize what they are, which is almost worthless these days. And if you're a benefits provider, don't. I will not respond to your email. But I shared with them some of my story, and in the real estate space, I said I said I still don't consider myself in sales. I will never think of myself in sales, but I realized years ago the 2 things that I had was I really enjoyed helping people, and I don't have an off switch. I will
What's
work.
that?
Yeah, exactly. You don't either, because your coffee has eroded yours if you had one. But
decaf is for quitters.
Decaf is for quitters. But I realized that everyone needs a home, and then you realize, and I share with them some of the things that we have been able to do, both in taking care of things for our family. I said, we have. When I made the jump, we didn't have an autistic son. We do. And I said, he just started talking like 6-8 months ago. And I said, we could not have afforded a tenth of the things that we have done to help him that have actually helped, because all of those things your benefits will not pay for. They're all out of pocket, and they all work because, or they've all, helped move forward. And all of the care providers have all said the same exact thing. We are not going to let an insurance company dictate how we help your son. And that's all I needed to hear. But all of those things are hundreds or thousands of dollars. And I'm like, and we've been able to help other families that don't have those resources, just like you said, have some of those same therapies that they don't have to pay for because the money is there. And that's, to your comment about the earlier about giving things away, of like, you can't give what you don't have. And that's where I think a lot of people that have cause or mission, they, and this is probably not the right way to say it, but they have it more of a lack or a poverty mindset of like, we shouldn't have, or we shouldn't. Scarcity, rather than thinking, well, if I had, what more could I do? I think it was John Maxwell, somebody years ago, said, money doesn't make you better, it makes you louder. So whatever is in your heart, money will magnify.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, so that's when you stop thinking about it as bad or good.
Right.
It's a matter of what is going to be amplified in your life if money comes into your life.
We say it this way about the same thing. One of my mentors, his wife would always say, money makes you more. If you're generous, money's only going to make you more generous.
Yep.
If you're stingy, money's only going to make you more stingy.
Yeah.
It's basically just an amplifier of what is already there.
Yeah. And I'll share this and we'll move on. Just because all the timing of this is just, providential is putting it mildly. But I had this morning, before that meeting this morning, I won't go into details, but I'm going to be sharing a story next week at this men's group that I go to. And the story is about, this was in 2016, giving away a car. And the story is just, it's like yours, but it wasn't 18 months long, but it's just like, you cannot make this up. When, the day that someone got a job that required a car that didn't have a car was the same day I called or sent an email to our pastor at the time and said, hey, this is a story for a different day. But I said, I don't know anybody, but I feel like we've been going rounds with this for a month or so. I think God wants us to give away this car. And I don't want to be a bad steward with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to just give it to somebody, blindly on Facebook or whatever. Do you know anyone? He didn't know anybody. Goes to the staff meeting the next week. The guy who's the student pastor had just had the meeting 2 days before, which was 2 days before the guy got offered a job that didn't have a car, that needed to get to a car. And so literally within a week, we had, not knowing anybody, we had given away it's probably still my favorite car that we've had. And just like if you don't have the resources, and we were not anywhere near kind of, where we've come at that point, but I just had the soundness. But if I needed that money to buy groceries, we couldn't have done that for our family. That's, that'd be terrible management of your own resources. But out of that that mindset of, if you're in that place of having a dream and you just, you maybe have that heart of a giver, be thinking about, okay, but if I had more, how much more could I give? And the training of the brain to think like that is not an overnight thing, but it is a game changer for us, because my wife was very much like that. I was like that before I started kind of making those mental shifts. And she was like that. And it's like, hey, if we did this instead of this, like, we could be, the employer of these people. And like you said, with the guy with, homelessness, like literally changing someone's life, like tangibly different, more, better, but you got to have something to give.
Yeah. And to me, that's what's so cool about, I think, what we've been doing at Phoenix. I've never been a part of anything quite like this, where I also feel like some of the gifts, just for me personally, and talents and stuff that I have, that I'm getting to use them in a very, different way. A lot of times people think I'm one of the owners because of how I present and talk about it and passionate about it or whatever. And they'll often think that it's my company. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I don't correct them. But when they see what I drive, they'll be like, this doesn't make sense. And a lot of times they're shocked to find out that, I'm not, that this isn't my personal company. Mm-hmm. And it's because of, I know when we sell coffee, I know it's doing these things.
Yeah.
And this is even some of the things that I tell, whether it's another church that's thinking about using our coffee or an individual. I was like, you can find cheaper coffee. Mm-hmm. Easy. It's not hard. Mm-hmm. Right. I think the quality of what we have is excellent, because you know what? We always say no good cause is worth a crappy cup of coffee. Hey, man, love what you're doing. Your coffee sucks. That's no bueno. Right. But we've got excellent coffee. The quality is there, but I don't know what Sam's or Costco, I don't know what they're doing with your money when they get it, but I know what we're doing with it. Yeah. And there's some things that are happening abroad and right here in these here United States, that are making a difference in people's lives. Mm-hmm. And which is why we stay committed, to keep on doing this, because we've got issues just like anybody or any business, and challenges and stuff like that. And, but we can see that there's something much bigger, than just a bottom line,
And we have relationships with these farmers, all of them. We can take you to the
I was
farm.
going to ask if you can get into that, because I knew you had some of the
Direct trade.
Correct. We have coffee from Guatemala, Panama, Honduras, and Nicaragua, and Ethiopia. We have direct relationships with all these farmers. These farmers are all missional. In other words, number one, they pay their workers a fair living wage, which a lot of people in the coffee industry do not do.
Yep.
They take advantage of the migrant picker, and really a lot of these pickers, they're migrants, and so they make just enough money to cover their expenses where they are, and then they're moving to go pick the next crop for the next season, and they literally, it's a cycle of poverty, and that's what we call it.
Yeah.
The cycle of poverty. They never get out of it. And so our farmers are paying their workers a fair living wage. They are taking some of the funds that they are making from their coffee, and they are investing them in their local community. They're planting churches. They're investing in education, paying for teachers. They are putting freshwater wells in the villages. They are doing different things. They're trying to create industry in those villages besides just coffee. Cinder block making in Guatemala. They're looking at possibly doing some chickens. Chickens are a way that they survive over there, where they eat in these smaller villages. But being able to create some of these industries, so now you're keeping people together in the villages instead of fathers having to leave to go to the bigger city to make money, and either never coming home, or when they do come home, the kids are asleep and they never see them. Right. Yeah. So they're able to stay home in those villages and be together as a family. So you're helping keep the family together. You're raising the level of education. Not only that, you're building credibility. And so when you start talking about God and Jesus, and you plant a church in the village, you've got people that are saying, I believe, because I see that you're investing in our lives and you're making our lives better. And you're different than a lot of these other coffee companies that just come in and want to take advantage.
Yeah.
Well, we're not seeing these people as inventory or a product. We're seeing them as real people. You know, I know this is something that is like, you know, personal for me. Like, I'm from one of those places that people go to vacation.
Yeah.
And once you get outside of like the Paradise Island or whatever, you know, life
it's rough.
Is very different. Yeah. Right. You know, for people. And so, and at the end of the day, nobody wants to be seen as a project or less than. And it causes some of these people to be like, why are y'all coming here to stay in this poor village in an open air building in a hammock? Right. To be with us, you know, what's the catch? What's the angle? And then when they start to see us, like, we're doing this because not only do we love you, but God loves you. Yeah. You know, it is a very, very different thing when you show up in their surroundings, you know, in their territory. And, you know, we've been able to, like Jeff said, been able to pay the farmers like over that. And because we direct trade, things aren't being skimmed off by middlemen, right? And that's significant. And for a lot of these guys, they were already doing some great things, and it's just like, we're not of this mindset. Okay, the white guys from America are here. You know, let me show you how to do. Like, we come in behind them, and like, okay, how can we support you so you can be more effective? Because guess what? In a week, we're leaving, but they live there. Yeah. And so we want them to be effective. We want them to know that we care about them. We love them. Just a few weeks ago, we had one of our partners come over from Guatemala, staying in our houses and talking to the people in our churches. And when we do some of these conferences, sometimes some of our farmers will come over. So it's like, no, we want you to see, you know, these people and kind of like hear it from them, you know, because we want the message to be true.
Yeah. And also we don't come in and do handouts. Our farmers, right? It's dignified relief. Our farmers know the need. They're already working with these individuals and these families, and they're working with them year round. And so we come along and we work alongside of them. They're working, like if we're building a house, that family's working with us to build the house. We're there to help them, but they're carrying the majority of the work. And so it's not a handout. We walk alongside them. Like Luke said, dignified relief, and it makes a difference.
How do you keep yourselves grounded and avoid the comparison trap, or the we could be more like this, or we could do this differently and be here? Like when you give so much away as you do, how do you keep yourselves on task internally, if that's the right way of saying it?
Well, we realize why we're doing it.
I think that's the from a business owner's perspective.
Correct.
That is a daily, if not,
it's a tension.
It's that tension of, I think I'm doing things the right way, but man, you see, I mean, in our world, you see somebody lists 4 houses in a week. You're like, what am I doing wrong that they're doing right? And
well, we know even if we had the coffee market cornered, there's so many people out there. There's so much coffee. We couldn't handle all the business. We actually pray for our competitors. We try to build relationships with coffee roasters, coffee growers, coffee shops, even if they're competing against us in the same market where we have coffee. We're trying to get to know them and build a relationship, because there's things we could work together on. Hey, maybe we can come alongside and help each other. But there's a couple missional coffee roasters in the Atlanta area, and we don't see them as competitors. We pray for them, and we talk to them. We get a chance. I mean, that's one of the things that helps us stay grounded, and there's a mission in that, that we realize what we're doing it for. It's not, we're not trying to get rich. I mean, that would be nice. We're not doing it to get rich. It's missional. We know that we're trying to help people get out of poverty in the cycle of poverty, but also we're trying to plant churches. We're trying to grow the kingdom of God. And so there's a lot more at stake than just being number one in a market and making a lot of money. And so we got to constantly remind ourselves, and because we're small enough and we're together a lot, we're doing church, I think it kind of helps us stay focused on keeping the main thing the main thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think a thing that really helps us, because I'll just speak a little bit about like my family and like when I came here, my wife has like an Airbnb business where she kind of like manages, Airbnbs, and we started with our own house, where like literally we'd get out on the weekends and Airbnb our own home. And in the summers, we do it for larger periods of time, where like my wife would take the kids up to the grandparents. And then I've stayed at his house in his basement. I've stayed on couches of other guys that I work with it was a sacrifice. Yeah. And now she's got some other clients that we don't have to do our own home anymore. Praise the Lord. But, it's like, why would you do that? Because one, I really believe in what we're doing. And at the end of the day, I think this is where our faith in God comes in, is that as improbable as this whole thing has been, and the guys and the team that God has brought together, at the end of the day, our hope isn't in sales. Our hope isn't in the White House. It's not in the stock market. It's not. Our hope is firmly in Jesus Christ. And as we're serving him, somehow, I don't know how, he just makes it work. You probably couldn't formulate all this maybe in a business class at a university, but just because sometimes we don't understand some of the things that are going on, or maybe have the ability to understand it, doesn't mean that on some level it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like that dude who was blind that Jesus healed, if someone like, well, can you tell me medically how you're able to see now? Yeah. I don't know nothing about that. Everything was black, right? I couldn't see nothing. And now I can see you, right? I don't know how that, Lazarus, can you tell me how you were dead and you were not dead? Dude, all I know is everything was nothing. And then I woke up wrapped up in a bunch of this stuff. I was dead and then I wasn't. And honestly, there are some things about our business, like being on the inside and everything. I'm like, I don't know. Like, bro, we have in the nitro coffee world, we have the very best patent that I've ever seen. And I go to all the coffee fests and do whatever. We have the very best technology, the best. How did we do that? It was the Lord, giving us that.
Well, and there's a good story in that with Micromatic, with our nitro technology. We have a partnership an exclusive partnership with Curtis Brewers USA and Micromatic USA, where they use our technology in their nitro infusion boxes and they sell them, and then we get a percentage. So that's something else that we do on the side. We also provide the fluid in the kegs for the nitro drinks. But this was interesting. Once you get a patent, you've got to constantly keep your eye on the market. If somebody's infringing, you have to send them a letter and tell them they can't do that anymore. And so Micromatic USA was infringing on our patent. And so we had to send them a letter, and they're a large company. As a matter of fact, everything that's in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, all the taps, all that stuff in the bars, and they did it all. That's all Micromatic equipment. And so they're a large company, large corporation that we could not fight because we didn't have the pockets at all. So long story short, their lawyer and our lawyer went back and forth, couldn't come to an agreement. So their CEO said, I want to fly up, their headquarters are in Tampa. I want to fly up to Duluth and Atlanta and meet with these guys face to face. And so we met with him face to face. He came in, sat down with the four of us who were co-owners in the company. But we shared our story with him. Yeah. We said, we want to share our story with you first, so you know who we are and what we're trying to do. So we shared our story, and then he shared his story about where he grew up and where he came from. He came from Ireland, and it was a good story and everything. And then, he said, well, we agree on what we owe you. We infringed. That's our bad. So we're going to pay you what we've already sold. You're going to get a certain percentage. It's going forward is what he was trying to negotiate. And of course, he's trying to negotiate from strength from his standpoint. So we just couldn't agree on that. So we decided we're going to take a break and go to dinner. And so he gets up and he says, Jeff, where's the bathroom? I walked out in the hallway, showing him where the bathroom was. I walked into the office across the hall. He comes out of the bathroom. He says, hey, Jeff, can you get the team together? I want to say something. And I don't know what happened while he was in the bathroom, but I said, guys, come on, Kean wants to say something. And he just said, you know what? I was thinking about your story and all the good you're doing. He says, you've got your asking price going forward. Negotiations are done. We're going to give you what you want. And so and he said, come on, let's go get dinner. And that started an incredible partnership that we've had with them, which led to Luke going on a trip. He and Brian took Kean and several of their big executives to Guatemala, to the village. Yeah. And
we took them on a mission trip to Guatemala to the farm. Wow. They're like, we want to see what you're talking about. So you got these guys, some of these guys are pretty high level.
Probably never been anywhere.
Yeah. Some high level guys, big bank accounts.
Yeah. Some of them do not have a relationship with God. Or
they're and I don't know that I've ever been on a mission trip where the majority of people on the trip don't even identify as Christian. So that was interesting in a lot of ways, but it was really fun too. Well, we had just a great time, and I was just like, man, when people came into contact with this idea that you can do so much good with what you have and still be successful. This was like, you could tell it was helping something come alive, in them. And we have like an incredible partnership with them. Like, this last year when we were doing all the coffee fests in New York and Louisville, Kentucky and Orlando, and we were in their booth or they were in our booth. So we were doing these things in partnership, and people are like, oh, we all know who Micromatic is. They're a global company.
Who are you?
Right. They're like, how are you at the big kids table? And the only way that I can explain those things happening is just by keep saying yes to God. And I've come to learn in my life that there's a lot of times God gave me a brain, and the best thing I can do with that brain is to fill it not only with knowledge, but wisdom to make good decisions. Right. And you know that in any business or whatever, when you put the right person in at the top who's making good, wise decisions, there is a trickle down benefit to everyone else in that company. And that's why it's so uneasy when the guy at the top changes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, if a new head football coach comes in, it didn't matter how good the OC was, right? If you're not going to run his system, he's going to bring his guy in, and it's going to change the whole trajectory of the team. And so I'm a firm believer in getting wisdom, right? Proverbs tells us that though it costs you everything, get wisdom, get understanding, right? Because it's going to help you. Wisdom helps you navigate through any kind of situation. Some that are, there's sometimes stuff just happens that you can't predict, right? Wisdom helps you navigate out of those things. It helps you navigate relationally, right? It helps you navigate in business or whatever. But at the same time, I believe that I'm going to use the heck out of logic and wisdom till God tells me to do something that seems illogical.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really the kind of MO of all of us is, we're going to try to do the thing that honors God and the thing that's the most wise until God tells us to do something that seems like, well, this seems crazy. Starting a coffee company in the middle of the '08 recession or shortly thereafter
Right.
is probably not a good business move. But everything that you can trace, we just kept saying yes to, and somehow we relied a lot on big catering events. And then one day in 80% of our business, like, and all these big events that we had, wiped off the books in one day. And so we're like, well, what the heck are we going to do? So we just started to pivot and we just started to do what we could. And somehow at the end of that year, and you look at the books a lot more than I do. They don't even let me around the room where the books are. I'm like, what are books? But our numbers weren't that much different from 19 to 20,
Wow.
which I'm like, I don't know how that's possible. But again, I think when you're trying to focus on saying yes to God and something bigger than yourself, some of the decisions don't always like, wow, this is weird. But somehow, I don't know how it works out. And again, that's to me like, all I know is I couldn't see. This dude Jesus showed up and now I can see.
Yeah.
And learning to do that and becoming more comfortable with sometimes the uncomfortable is still not always easy. But doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always right.
Yeah. One of the things that my wife's an agent now with me as well, that we did like early on, and for about 3 years at our office, I was the agent who was training other agents. And one of the things that I just emphasize with them is, just like you said, anybody can sell coffee.
Right.
Anybody can get a real estate license and put a sign in the yard. It's what do you do on the back end? What do you do through the process that makes you different? And one of the things that I just like beat a dead horse in the ground is like, have a mission, have a cause, because just like you shared with the executive, like the story matters way more than people realize on the front end. But it's like everything that we naturally have an affinity to, or the places we go back to over and over again, there's usually stories that are tied to that. That's the impetus behind that. And if you don't have a story, you're just an XYZ. But when you have a story, now you're the guy that provides this to this family. Now you're in that in that context. I'm like, it can be whatever. Like if you have a passion for animals, like partner up with a humane society or an adoption program or whatever. If you have a passion, your family served in the military, and you partner up with VA assistance or wounded
What
warriors.
makes you come alive?
Like, yeah, exactly. And I said, because when you do that, I said, one, you will work differently. There will be an internal device that turns on that is currently off. And I tell them, like, that's why you're still in your PJs at 11, like, because that mechanism has not turned on. I said, and then when you do that, your work is now has a purpose behind it. It doesn't feel like, there's days that feel like the grind, but more of your days feel like they're filled with a cause, and you're just, I don't want to say drifting in the along the road, but like you're going and directing your business in something that you're naturally passionate and have a love for.
There's a different energy.
Very much.
And in the coffee world, we know all about the grind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This is why he comes to meetings.
He's here all week.
And I'm wearing a shirt. So yeah.
I'll now have that as part of my screening material.
right.
Make sure you come clothed. Yes.
That's right.
From looking back at the journey. So one, just thank you for sharing so much of the stories with your journey. Was there anything you would do differently, change, do more sooner?
Yeah, we learned different things. golly, there's all kinds of things you learn along the way. But, we've said this one statement over and over. We ask ourselves, what are the chances? Well, it's 100% if God's involved in it. Yeah, sometimes we may have rushed ahead of God and bought equipment we didn't quite need yet, or bought too many beans, and it kind of put us in a financial situation that was challenging. So we really, for us, because we were all pastors, we're not business people, we're pastors. And so we're thinking more about the kingdom than the business in a lot of times. And sometimes you need to step back and go, okay, well, moving forward, you still got to have money to run, to pay people, to do these things. I think for us, it was just, it's been a growth process of learning how to do business and, stay within a budget and trust that God's going to provide, and don't rush ahead of God. That's really the biggest lesson of all of this, from getting our roaster to where we are today, is those times we tried to get ahead of God, we found ourselves in a not so good situation, or financially we put ourselves in a bad situation. Whereas if we just waited and trusted on God, God came through and we were in a much better situation. So for me, that's what I've learned through this process.
Yeah, I would say like that. You probably hit the nail on the head, right there, in business, and in life. There's been some things where I'm just like, man, sometimes we kind of like, we start to get anxiety, about what may or may not happen. And because of that, sometimes it causes us to make a decision that's reactionary and based out of fear. And I think this is another, you have like a whole nother gear shift, I think, when you start to factor in putting your hope and trust in the Lord. And this is one of the things I probably learned over this last Christmas season. It's kind of like when you look at hope as from like a biblical perspective, it's really about, even though there is no evidence that anything is going to change or that things are going to work out, you can have hope because of God's track record and what he's already done, and his character and who he is. And I think that transcends man's wisdom, because, you can take every major event that's happened in the Bible, ask Pharaoh what his predictions were for the Jews before Moses came back. It's a lot different than after the first Passover, right?
Yeah.
A lot different, right? Ask, those guys that had Daniel thrown in the lion's den, what their prediction. I bet they didn't think the next day they were going in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Ask them what their predictions were. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so every significant thing that's happened in the Bible and in our lives before it happened, none of it looked good.
Yeah.
But yet, here it is. Ask everybody, you can ask some of the religious leaders in Jesus' day, when he was up there hanging on the cross, what their predictions were. I bet they didn't think they were going to have to be still dealing with that 3 days later. Right? And here we are, sitting on the shoulders of all that greatness. Right? And I think that's probably, to his point of what he said, that's probably like the greatest thing, is like learning to trust God and not get ahead of him. God gives us wisdom. We need to make good, principles and sound judgments where we can. But those other times where like, okay, Lord, we really feel like, you're telling us to wait. We really need a roaster, but you're telling us to wait, and you're telling us to wait. Now we've been waiting a year. Now we've been waiting a year and 3 months. Now we've been waiting a year and 6 months, and bam, God gave us something way better than we could have actually conjured up.
I want to wrap up real quick. So the question I like to ask before the end of every episode is called the lightning round, which has nothing to do with anything. But I will ask.
That's shocking.
So for each of you, the best, most influential book you've read, thing you've heard, movie, moment you watched or whatever in the last year. And it can be business, it can be life, it can be spiritual, like whatever.
Well, the most influential book for me is the Bible. I mean, no matter how many.
Last year.
I think I've read the Bible in the last year as well. So, but for me, that helps me spiritually, and he knows this. There's a gentleman named Boyd Bailey who is with an organization called Wisdom Hunters, and he has wisdom for life, wisdom for husbands, wisdom for wives, wisdom for men. And his whole thing is about making wise choices. And so when we grow in our wisdom, we make wise choices. And so I read all his stuff all the time. And for me, his work is very influential in my life, reminding me, to make wise choices. The choices determine the quality and direction of our lives. So choose wisely. And so for me, that's been, and he does a daily email that I get, and I'll read that, and I read his books. You can go to YouVersion Bible app. They've got a lot of his stuff on there as well.
Okay.
But I know that's not some business guru or anything like that. But I'm a pastor at heart. And for me, I can sometimes read those things and those books, but I just, that's where I come back to. For me, that's just where God speaks to me. I find that's where I get convicted. That's where I get challenged. That's where I grow. That's where I change, is coming back to reading those kind of either books or devotionals. But they just, I connect with them. I resonate with them.
Yeah, so I would have to say Olivia Newton-John. No, I'm just kidding. Oh man, rest in peace. She was awesome. No, mine is actually something that's just happened to me in the last few days that has really been just opening my mind up in a lot of ways. I've been seeing a new doctor, and one of the things that he's just kind of doing here in a nutshell, he's right here in Gainesville too, is trying to, your body knows what to do to heal.
Yep.
Right. And his approach is, how do we open up systems in your body? Mm-hmm. Right. So imagine this. Imagine if there's a large natural disaster and you had all these military trucks with food, blankets, lumber, water, blah, blah, blah. But there was these trees that were down on the road blocking, and none of these vehicles can get through. What he's trying to do is he's not trying to give you more trucks. He's trying to move the trees. Mm-hmm. So the trucks are already on a mission,
right?
So everything can get to where it's supposed to be and things can function like they need to. And this is something I've been really thinking about maybe over the last just couple of weeks, is it's really kind of reinforcement of some of the things that we believe, around our community, how relief creates margin to have discussions about things that matter. And, and I think that all of us have different talents, gifts, and abilities that allow us to move the trees off of people's life highways, so things can get to where they need to. And one of my mottos in life is, there's a reason why we really don't use VHS tapes anymore. Time and technology have made them irrelevant. Yep. But the cup is a much older technology, right? Time and technology haven't made that irrelevant. And here's the biggest difference as to why. It's because it's still useful. So the motto for me is, useful things get used. The more useful it is, the more you're going to use it. What are all those infomercials about? Trying to convince you, that the ThighMaster 3000 is going to be useful to you, right? And so I think when you can focus your lens on how can I add value to people, and how can I make things useful for them, you're going to have more success. Mm-hmm. And I think that's on a spiritual level or a business level.
Yeah.
And so that's probably been the thing that has really been coming to life for me over even just the last few weeks.
Awesome. Before we go, how do people find you, find your coffee? If they want to do a catering event, anything like that, how do they get in touch?
Yeah, if you want to buy our coffee as an individual, you want to buy it for a business, a coffee shop, a church, or you want to do a catering event, you go to phoenixroasters.coffee. Phoenix Roast, spelled like the city in Arizona, PHOENIX, roasters.coffee. And that will take care of everything on the coffee side for you. If you're interested in our churches, you want to find out what we're doing on our church side, you go to phoenixatl.org, phoenixatl.org. And that'll take care of everything right there that we do. And we have a foundation, phoenixroastersfoundation.org, phoenixroastersfoundation.org. That'll tell you a lot of what's going on about what's going on our farms, how you can get involved there, how you can help contribute to projects we're doing, not only with coffee, but also directly.
And also helping us to stay out of jail. So we want to do everything above
Great
board.
cause as well.
I am a huge fan of not going to jail. Yeah.
Yes, we can't mingle the coffee and the church. So the foundation sits between the two to protect us from the IRS and the federal government.
Great philosophers, The Offspring has said, got to keep them separated.
There you go.
know?
That's the best ending of any episode I've done yet. So thank you guys. Thank you for sharing your story. And I know we all got
Thank you,
places to
Jay.
go, so appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Peace out.
This is the North Georgia Life Podcast. Embrace life where you live.